I've got two rears.
Nerd alert! Nerd alert!
Hi, welcome to DSLR Nerd. I'm your host Damien, and tonight I'm going to continue to talk about HDMI locking solutions. Sometimes they have anti-twist, sometimes they don't. I think HDMI is obviously the priority of protection. You don't want to have your HDMI cable come out and you be yanked out of your camera on a shoot. You'll lose your feed, as well as possibly damaging your HDMI port, which is very expensive to fix. So the good folks at Lock Circle sent me this LockPort. I got an HDMI lock and anti-twist mechanism. It's called the HDSLR Camera HDMI Port Saver Adapter Clamp. All right, I got a few pieces here. I got a couple of Allen wrenches because I needed more of those. I've got some instructions here. Take it all out here. This supposedly fits the Z finder somehow. Hopefully that came in the instructions. It's a very thin piece of machined aluminum. LockPort sells their HDMI protection with a rear-facing L adapter and a front-facing L adapter. Unfortunately though, they sent me both the rear ones. So here's the instructions for this. Top tells you everything that comes with it. Fix the LockPort base plate onto the LockPort cage without tightening the locking knob. Lock the mount port assembled to the camera, no screw tightened down at this point. Then introduce gently the LockPort HDMI adapter and mount your tripod or rig base plate. Screw on your tripod securely, and then finally check alignment of all parts of the LockPort and start locking the HDMI adapter without tightening too strong. The cage has to adapt slowly to the HDMI adapter. The knob can also be tightened strongly using the 2,25 Allen wrench. I think they meant 0.5. Unlike the IDC here, which is much thicker and has its own mounting points and quarter 20 thread, this LockPort is wafer thin. And the idea being that you mount this on top of your tripod. But I am going to mount it into my DSLR cage here, my tank. So this would just kind of sit right here. Your camera then goes in and you mount your camera normally. It does, as I said, have a anti-twist little bar at the back. See that? This plate is specific for the 5D Mark III. See the 5M3Z, which means 5D Mark III Zacuto version. Shall we follow the instructions then? Alright, so here's how that's going to work. We're going to unscrew this nut and washer and sit this into there. And we're going to put this guy back in. Alright, so we're going to leave this loose here because this slides forward and backwards. Here's my tank. Here's my new HDMI lock with anti-twist. Do you see the problem we're going to have? That hand screw is going to be an issue. Now it does come with this little extra screw, which I believe they told me via email you can put in with your newfound Allen wrench. So it's a little shorter, but it's still not flush. So I'm going to have to figure out what to do with my tank now because that's not going into it. See, they do have their little Allen nuts machined out so they fit totally flush into there when they made this little assembly, which, by the way, holds this adapter in. But on the bottom, they didn't do that. So I need this thing to sit inside my camera or tank, and I need it to be flush on the bottom. The way the IDC plate is completely flush or flat on the bottom. The way the Zacuto is not, this little hand knob could sit outside my camera arm. So because of all that, I'm just going to mount this on a quick release plate and then put this into my camera. Make sure you take the rubber cover off your port, your HDMI port, before you go trying to get a HDMI locking solution on. So they make this a little bit loose because you're going to be locking that into the side of your camera. Not really the quickest of operations, but I imagine I only have to do this once. So I've got that pressed down and plugged in. And now that I've got that in, now I'm going to kind of get a feel for where this wants to tighten up. Start by doing these. So for my particular camera, you can see this is slid a little bit forward, right? And then this is tight in. So you want to start by putting this in to your camera with this, all of this very, very loose, and then kind of getting a feel for how it wants to be tightened up. Alright, so that's the LockPort. I don't know what this extra plate was for, and I asked them to send me instructions, and it's not on the instructions. So this is some kind of extra plate for the Zacuto Z Finder, but I honestly don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. Here's the thing, it turns your mini HDMI into a full HDMI, so you have to then buy another cable. If you're like me, you've probably already got a couple of mini to full HDMI cables. Once you get the LockPort on here, you're full HDMI to HDMI. Not sure why they did that. Why didn't they just let you come out of mini and plug into mini? You can still have this yanked out of your camera, but at least the yanking will be done pulling out of this little L bracket rather than out of your camera with the potential to bend your pin. Anyway, you have to decide whether or not you want this to go out the back or you want it to go out the front. Ahead of time when you order this, you only get one of these. So you can see how that's on. This should actually go into my CPM now that I've because it's pretty thin, that plate. So trying to get this in my CPM rig, the height would have cleared, but as you can see right there, that's not going to clear that back 15mm rod. So as I said, pretty much just want to pull that rod out of any cage that you've got. So being that that's going to hit that, I would have to take this loose and those back out and then plug it into the side and then tighten it all back up again, which I'm not going to do. So I like it. My negatives are the fact that it's got this hand tightening bolt to hold this support piece in, so you never truly get a flush solution. I wish they had machined it in such a way that you could go in with an Allen screw and tighten this up with a screw and have this be totally flush. I don't love that it turns your mini HDMI into a full HDMI, because now I've got to buy a full HDMI to HDMI cable. Still have the potential of having the HDMI yanked out of the back here or bent, but then you just have to replace this little L bracket. You don't have to replace your HDMI port in your camera, which would be a heck of a lot more expensive. So this has been the LockPort, both anti-twist and HDMI protection port. I'm Damien, your host of DSLR Nerd. I want to thank you for watching my videos. Please subscribe wherever subscribe is now. Where is subscribe? It's up there, right? So stay tuned. I'm going to do a wrap up of all these HDMI locks and anti-twist. I've got a couple more to review. Once I get all these individual reviews done, I'll definitely do a sort of wrap up post of all of this stuff. So I do have a blog where I post even more content than you see here on the video. So it's definitely good to go to dslrnerd.com and to check out the additional information that I put on my post along with the videos that you see on YouTube. Everybody have a great day, and thanks for watching. See ya.